Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today we're taking a look at a mono-white lifegain deck featuring Ajani, Strength of the Pride as our commander, a bit of a blast from the past, but this 4-mana Planeswalker is incredibly powerful. The +1 ability we're often going to use if we already have an established board, gaining a life equal to the number of creatures and Planeswalkers we control. Then the -2 makes an Ajani's Pridemate token, so that will pick up additional +1 counters whenever we gain life. And then the 0 ability is kind of like an ultimate, as it turns into a one-sided board wipe if we have 40 or more life in Brawl, since we start out at 25, exiling all of the opponent's creatures and artifacts, so it can also be incredibly powerful, and this deck is quite good at gaining life, so it's not too difficult to get to 40 or more life to begin with. Now, taking a look at our deck, I've split it up into a few different categories to help with the breakdown. We've got some of our one-shot non-creature life gain effects, then plenty of creatures that help us gain life repeatedly, often gaining life when creatures enter, and then we've got our life gain payoffs, cards that will benefit from gaining life, either getting +1 counters, generating creature tokens, or maybe even drawing cards. Then we've got some interaction, lots of removal for artifacts and enchantments that will also gain life in the process, and a few answers to creatures. And then we've got some additional card draw, some one-shot card draw effects, as well as some repeatable card draw engines that will play well with Ajani. And then the miscellaneous section includes some artifact ramp, as well as Skrelv's Hive to make additional tokens, which in turn can also gain us more life. So that's our deck in a nutshell. Now for the deep dive, starting with our life gain enablers. At 1 mana, there's Ajani's Welcome in enchantment form, which is kind of like a worse version of Case of the Uneaten Feast, which can also be solved to let us replay creatures out of the graveyard. Cleric class gains us more life now, and can also give us +1 counters if we level it up or reanimate a creature on level 3. Revitalize just gains 3 and draws, whereas Union gains life equal to the number of cards in hand, in addition to drawing a card. Then taking a look at some of our creatures, Guide of Souls, one of the best ones, can also make energy to eventually give a creature 2 +1 counters and flying. Healer's Hawk, one of the many life-linking flyers in this deck. We also have the Rune Lurker Bat. Then the Sanctifier is kind of like a worse version of Guide of Souls. Legion's Landing makes a life-linking vampire token. If we attack with enough creatures, we can transform it into Adanto, which can keep making those life-linking tokens. And Leonin Vanguard can passively gain life if we control 3 or more creatures. Lunarch Veteran, one of the many effects that gains life when a creature enters in creature form. We've got the Sarah Ascendant, which turns into a 6/6 flying lifelinker if we have 30 or more life, so we only need to gain 5 life in Brawl to enable it, which is pretty easy. Soul Warden, the best of these 1-drops that gains life, since it also triggers off opposing creatures entering. Then we've got Soulmender, which can tap to gain a life, not too impressive. We've got a slightly better Traveling Minister, which can also give a creature 1 extra power at least. Speaker of the Heavens requires 32 or more life in Brawl to tap to make an Angel token turn after turn, and a 1/1 Vigilance lifelink himself. Then we've got the Conjure at 2 mana, which is similar to these other creatures gaining life when creatures enter, but for 5 mana we can also flicker one of our creatures to maybe give us more ETB effects. The Orator, a very simple 2/2 version of it. Then we've got the Life-Free Duo, a 1/2 flyer with that same ability, and Daxos gets more toughness equal to our Devotion to White. And then Linden can gain a life for each white creature we control that attacks. And finally, Steel Seraph can play it for 3 mana as a 3/3 flyer, giving our creatures various abilities like Flying, Lifelink, and Vigilance. Then we get to some of our payoffs, including Ajani's Pridemate, which is just a 2-mana version of the Pridemate token we can make with our commander. Ocelot Pride, even the nerfed version, is very powerful, making cat tokens, eventually gaining the City's Blessing to double our token production, also very good with the tokens from Ajani. Essence Channeler is similar to the Pridemate, can move its +1 counters when it dies. Griffin Airy makes a 2/2 flying token if we gained 3 or more each turn. Voice of the Blessed, similar to a Pridemate, but eventually gains abilities like flying and indestructible at 10 or more counters as well. Heliod is great as a commander, but still very good in the 99, giving us additional +1 counters, can give our creatures a lifelink for 2 mana, and eventually turns into a 5/5 indestructible creature as well. Faithmender will double all our life gain effects, very good in combination with Ajani's +1 ability, which in turn sets up the 0 ability to wipe the opponent's board, very good for reaching certain thresholds, so we can enable some of our effects. Twinblade Paladin starts out with double strike in Brawl, since we start out at 25 life, and then picks up more +1 counters over time. The Exemplar also gets more +1 counters when we gain life, and also draws a card whenever that triggers for the first time each turn. Leyline of Hope is awesome to have in your opening hand, gaining additional life and eventually giving the team a +2/+2 as well. Angel of Destiny, one of our alternate win conditions. If we can gain enough life and attack with it, then it can just win the game. There's Archangel, giving us +1 counters on each creature whenever we gain life, so it can also get out of hand very quickly. Crested Sunmare makes 5/5 horse tokens when we gain life each turn. We got the Felidar Sovereign, another alternate win condition if we have 40 or more life at the beginning of our upkeep. And then there's the Paragon, which can also give us a ton of +1 counters, especially in combination with Ajani's +1 ability. Then our removal includes some creature removal, like Laid on Arms, a reason to include lots of planes in your mana base. The instant speed Swords to Plowshares, another staple in Brawl. And then a Solitude we can also easily enable, and also a creature entering the battlefield, enabling more of our synergies. And then we've got answers to artifacts and enchantments. Light of Hope can either gain 4 or destroy an enchantment, or maybe put a +1 counter on a creature. Lucky Offering destroys artifacts with mana value 3 or less while also gaining 3. Sanctify, a bit more versatile, can destroy either artifacts or enchantments while gaining 3. And then we've got Aloran, can also blow up an artifact or enchantment when it enters. Wandering Emperor can exile tapped creatures. And then we've got our Heliod's Intervention, can destroy X target artifacts and or enchantments, or gain twice X life, so it's also quite versatile. And then our card draw effects include Esper Sentinel if the opponent's not willing to pay the tax, Archivist if the opponent searches, so very good against opposing fetch lanes. We've got the Inspiring Overseer and Priest of Ancient Lore, gaining 1 and drawing a card when they enter. And then we've got some repeatable card draw engines here with Tokasia's Welcome, as well as Welcoming Vampire and Enduring Innocence, all drawing cards when smaller creatures enter, including the Ajani's Pridemate tokens, even though they're not going to stay small for long. And then Wedding Announcement, probably more of a miscellaneous card here, making lots of 1/1 tokens and eventually pumping up our team. Skrelv's Hive can make 1/1 tokens each turn at the cost of 1 life, which we can easily offset, often gaining more in the process. And then our ramp artifacts, we've got Arcane Signets, Pristine Talisman gains a life when we tap it, and then Power Stone makes 2 mana, so is also worth having. And then our mana base, just 38 planes. Castle Ardenvale can maybe make some more 1/1 tokens for us, and Radiant Fountain can gain 2 when it enters, is also pretty useful to have. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Marchesa, Grixis control sort of. So yeah, I don't want too many conditional cards. Serra Ascendant is going to be difficult to enable. So the only card I really like in this hand is the Priest of Ancient Lore. I'll take a free mulligan. Esper Sentinel's pretty good. So we'll start with that one. And then we've got lots of cheap creatures to deploy, so maybe we'll be empty-handed by the time our opponent can play more discard spells. Turn 1 Ragavan's a problem, so might want to give them Speaker or a Ruin Lurker Bat. I'll maybe go with the bats. So unless they have removal, they're probably not trading. And then now we have Speaker that can block while the bat attacks. If our opponent plays Marchesa, we can Swords it. Laid on Arms, an answer to Ragavan, so we could answer both. Could also get the Case in play, but it doesn't do anything right now. Yeah, I don't mind this efficient use of our removal. Now Speaker gets to attack. We need 32 life for this to make Angel tokens. So still 4 life needed. Ooh, Toxic Deluge is painful. At least we got to draw a card on the way out, but don't love losing all my creatures. And we still haven't drawn a 3rd land. So I guess we're just setting up here for Overseer to maybe draw into a 4th land. The rest can take our Wandering Emperor. Alright, time for Overseer. Opponent may counter it, decides to let it go. And a long goodbye to remove it. Alright, so we're at 32 life. Need 40 for Ajani's Zero ability to work. Opponent redeploys Marchesa. Alright, time for Ajani, I guess. Hope they don't have a wash away. An offer you can't refuse instead. Alright, not great, but at least we got 2 treasures in return, so we can try again next turn potentially. We can also level up our cleric class to eventually get a creature back. Opponent's gonna attack. They do get to commit a crime, but they don't have the mana to pay for Marchesa. And I guess Hive also makes our cleric class worse. They exiled the Emperor instead of a creature. Vanguard's interesting. So I don't have enough to gain life with it this turn. Could also play a 5/4 Steel Seraph. And then maybe hang on to the other treasure instead of playing the Vanguard. Could also level up Cleric class, play this, gaining a life, making it a 2/2. Not all that impressive. So, yeah, I'm kind of down to play the Steel Seraph here. Hope it doesn't get removed. And then next turn, we can gain life with it. Still haven't solved the case, so getting an attack in for 5 would help. Never mind, Sheoldred's Edict makes me regret not playing the Vanguard now. At least it didn't commit a crime for Marchesa. And opponent's gonna draw 3. Pretty good. So I can play Ajani, make a token, and then play Vanguard growing the token, and now we also have 2 blockers for their Menace creature. Although what's likely going to happen is their opponent removes our Pridemates and then finishes off Ajani. Thoughtseize, just to commit a crime, alright. So 2 mana to draw a card at the cost of 2 life. Not the best rate. Hive is gonna attack. Can still double block it. And our opponent can commit a crime once again. Yeah, they should be targeting my creatures instead of my non-creatures. I guess I can also block Marchesa instead of their Hive. And then we don't lose the Vanguard, since, yeah, it looks like we're losing Ajani no matter what. Alright, so time to level up Cleric class. And then next turn we can get a creature back. Or with a land we can redeploy Ajani. Opponent just replays their commander. Found the land, so could go for Ajani. Still kind of liking Cleric class. Can return any creature from our graveyard to the battlefield, so going for Steel Seraph seems decent. Alternatively, Inspiring Overseer at least guarantees a card, but Steel Seraph would also gain enough to solve the other case, so that still makes sense to me. And then we get a +1 counter, put it on. If they have removal, I don't want to put too many eggs in the Steel Seraph basket. So maybe Vanguard makes sense. Or just keep growing the Pridemate. Now I'll diversify. So the case is now solved. Vanguard's also going to gain a life if they don't destroy my creatures. And then we'll fly the Pridemates. Or could go for lifelink. I guess Vigilance is also reasonable, so all modes are decent. I'll go for lifelink. And then counter on Vanguard. So yeah, it doesn't seem like our opponent has removal. They're about to take 12. Possible they're sandbagging a sweeper. But then we can still follow up with Ajani, or we can sack the case and get a bunch of creatures back. Snapcaster going for Toxic Deluge would cost them a lot of life, but that's maybe what they're going for. Yep. Could have been a reason to put an extra counter on Pridemate last turn. Alright, opponent's at 4. And opponent plays a One Ring. So at least we don't need to worry about a counterspell right now. Opponent's also on a clock from their One Ring at 4 life. So, yeah, I guess if we cast Ajani and our opponent happens to have a wash away, that would be painful. So I think we're better off sacrificing the case. Can still play Healer's Hawk first. And then we would have 7 mana left. Can cast 1, 2, 3, 4, plus an Overseer. Yeah, that seems good enough. So then our opponent would need another board wipe, which, if they had, let's say, a Damnation, they probably would have cast it last turn. So, start with a Sentinel, maybe. And then we'll also gain more life of Vanguard, which is another +1 counter. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing the combo of Lurrus as companion with Amalia as commander, so another life gain deck. Probably not the best spot for Felidar Sovereign. I do like the start of Guide and Sanctifier. Yeah, maybe this is still good enough. And who knows, maybe we can steal a win with our alternate win condition. So we're less interested in dealing damage and more interested in preserving our own life total, should we get the choice. Opponent's got an Authority. And Enduring Innocence is pretty nice. So we've got a card draw engine. And then Ajani can trigger it right away. Also a blocker that can soak up an attack. Swords would be a decent answer to Amalia, but I think it's still worth it to play the Enduring Innocence for now. We'll probably take a hit from Amalia. Ooh, Voice of the Blessed, that one's quite scary as well, especially once it flies. So we'll take 3. And then, yeah, gotta be Ajani still. Make a token. Creatures entering tapped is certainly relevant here in this spot. But we will get to draw, so that's good for hitting our land drops for Felidar Sovereign. So we'll pass. Innocence is happy to chump if needed. And then next turn we could Welcoming Vampire, make a token, draw 2, and still swords. The Sentinel not at its best in this matchup. Command the Dreadhorde is kind of scary, although still far away, so opponent mills it. And reanimate the Gorehounds, could have been worse. Voice already flies, I guess that's taking out Ajani now. Alright, that's too bad. So wouldn't be able to draw off the Welcoming Vampire, but it still draws with Innocence at least. Yeah, do I chump? I think I do. Maybe next turn our token can hold off Amalia. So I probably want to Swords the Voice now. Although that also triggers Amalia, so it's a bit of a double-edged sword. But if I play Welcoming Vampire, they would gain more life since this picks up more counters. Small chance playing Vampire changes my play since I might draw something relevant with Enduring Innocence. So maybe that's worth that 1 life difference. So yeah, 40 or more life is still a long way to go. I guess there's also the rare scenario where we could Swords our own creature just to gain enough life. But the Sovereign still needs to survive. Actually drew a Signet, so got rewarded for waiting. And then do I attack with the Pridemates? I don't really need to win with damage if the plan is Sovereign, so maybe I keep it back. Although, again, if we exile the Voice, this is likely to grow some more, so it's not like we can successfully block Amalia. But maybe we can double or triple block it. So I'll pass. Ooh, return, getting back Sentinel and Bat. Guess we'll Swords the Voice now then. So Veteran gains more life, Gorehound keeps filling the graveyard, also good for Lurrus. And they can embalm a Sacred Cat. At least next turn the Vampire can hold off the Bat. Can't stay away. Also pretty good here, can make a Demon token with a Vessel. Opponent's not interested in attacking. They're at 39, but since they have Lurrus, we don't need to worry about an opposing Felidar. So yeah, what's our plan? Could go for Felidar, but then what are the odds that we'll have 40 life next turn? Yeah, we would need it in our upkeep, so that's not happening. So instead, I think it's Ajani, make a token, which will draw 2, and take it from there, and can pay the Sentinel tax. And then kind of hope to turn this board into a bit of a stalemate while we pull ahead on cards. Alright, so we've got more creatures, including one we can play at instant speed to draw off Enduring Innocence and Welcoming Vampire. So far so good. I guess we have to watch out for Amalia blowing up the board at some point. Thalia's alright. A Rider could have been an answer to the Innocence. Opponent keeps milling, and now goes for Lurrus. So yeah, the board is pretty much locked down. Opponent contemplating an attack. Reconsiders. Alright, so what are our options? Probably start by playing Minister, which will immediately draw. Then the plan might be to just gain life with Ajani, maybe after playing the Felidar. Although once we play Felidar, our opponent knows what's up. Although there's no easy way for them to stop us. They could also have some creature removal in hand. If I can get 40 life here, Ajani can just wipe their board, and I guess now with Union we can make that happen. So that seems like the safest play. And then can even pay the Sentinel tax. Yeah, this is pretty brutal. Uses your ability. Wipe your board. Those are exiled, so no getting them back either. And now we can probably win with damage. Can save Archivist until the opponent's turn to draw 2 more. And then now we can maybe set up the Sovereign alternate win condition. Secretly hoping for a board wipe, but opponent goes for Lurrus. If they get back the Vessel, it will make a 5/5 demon. It's going to be a Daxos first. And now a Westfold Rider. Okay, so play the Archivist now. And then, yeah, I'll go for the Felidar Sovereign. Opponent still has to chump. So sadly opponent concedes, but yeah, this game was mostly won thanks to Enduring Innocence and Welcoming Vampire drawing us a ton more cards, but of course Ajani wiping the board was pretty brutal. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Nicol, Bolas, God-Pharaoh, so Grixis control. Do get to start with a Leyline of Hope on the battlefield, although the rest of my hand's not great. Ajani's Welcome, no cheap creature, only 2 lands. But maybe I'll still try it, just because how often do you get to start with a Leyline of Hope in Singleton especially? Laid on Arms, one of our worst possible draws. Alright, Orator at least triggers our enchantments. Opponent bouncing our Leyline, making another token in return. Alright. I guess I should have bounced before Orator entered, so we didn't gain 1 more life of the fish. And now a Facebreaker. A land is good. And so yeah, we could Laid on Arms. I think I still prefer Steel Seraph here. And then we could fly the Orator, or we can just stay put in case they remove Steel Seraph. I can still double block Facebreaker. Opponent with a Transformer. Alright, and land 4, that's excellent. So now we have options, kind of like the Exemplar of Light to draw. Since there's more answers for 1 mana to an Ajani here. And then Steel Seraph can give itself lifelink now. Exemplar only draws 1 card per turn, but can still pick up more +1 counters. So yeah, we found the lands we needed. Stormdrake can now steal my Exemplar, I guess. So we may Laid on Arms to get rid of it. Opponent also has the Interplanar Beacon to maybe trigger the Exemplar. It's going to be a Skydiver as an extra blocker. Alright, so we don't need to worry about counterspells this turn. So I think I like resolving Ajani as opposed to the Leyline, although it's a close call. If we just play Leyline, Laid on Arms Exemplar, we're attacking for a ton of damage. Yeah, maybe that's good enough. And then we're not overextending into a sweeper either. Can gain 5 here. And everyone attacks. They did not jump with a Facebreaker, so possible they just want the extra treasure, which could help them cast Nicol Bolas, but it's not like Nicol Bolas is game ending in this spot. Opponent had a sweeper anyway, and actually needed the treasure for the extra black mana. Fair enough. So now case into Ajani. Ajani also ready to wipe the opponent's board with a 0 ability.
Fighting tooth and claw is what it takes. So my pride grows stronger.
And an ill-timed explosion can maybe deal with our token. They need mana value 6 or more. And opponent did have it, discarding a River's Rebuke, which honestly would have been pretty good otherwise as well. And a Grave Expectations, Heisting or Library. That's alright. So we could use Ajani 0 just to get rid of the Transformer. I don't think that's quite worth it. Let's just go Faithmender into token, or we can go token into Faithmender, so we trigger the welcome, so we get more +1 counters. Probably more relevant than gaining the additional life. Alright, opponent's gonna scoop it up. Yeah, they're pretty far behind here, even if they do manage to play Nicol Bolas. We'll have 2 creatures to pressure it, and then we'll also probably solve the case to be able to replay our creatures from the graveyard at some point. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with what looks like a keepable hand, maybe missing a 2-drop, but there's a chance we can lucky offering something. Up against God of Destiny. I'll try it. Power Stone will have to wait, but could be a solid turn 3 play. Our opponents may have a burn spell in hand here, and we're gonna play with fire. Play our Power Stone, and then maybe next turn we can already deploy Ajani. It's going to be an Orbrask's Forge, can destroy it with a Lucky Offering. So we now have 6 mana. Could go Exemplar into a Lucky Offering. Yeah, I don't hate that. And then Rowan can maybe blow up some bigger artifact later. Next turn I could go Heliod plus Ajani. Sadly, Obliterating Bolt still capable of taking out our 4/4. But yeah, I'll go Heliod plus Ajani and make a token for starters. Unholy Heat with Delirium takes out Ajani. And a Fable we can now blow up with Rowan. And our opponent seems to have more answers in hand. Laid on Arms an answer to their Shaman. So could also go Ajani plus to gain life, and then Laid on Arms. But don't really want to have them discard and draw. So let's blow up the Fable. And then, sure, I'll clear a path for our token, can give it lifelink as well. And then next turn we can redeploy Ajani. Solitude we can hardcast now, but still go for Ajani. Make a token, and then Heliod activate on our 4/4. No real need to draw with Rowan yet. then I think we keep growing the same token, since it's pretty hard for red-green to take care of a 6/6. With Solitude we have enough devotion for Heliod as well. I need to gain a little bit more life before Ajani can wipe their board. It's going to be a Phoenix with haste. And another one. Alright, so they can finish off our commander once again. Now do we draw with Loran? Solitude's still a pretty good answer to their creatures. Which one's more threatening? 3 or more damage versus Bestow with Collect Evidence. Yeah, it's probably the Detective's Phoenix. I'm fine to draw. Find an Angel of Destiny, that one's fun too. And an Ajani's Welcome. So options aplenty. Don't mind playing the Angel. And then I can still activate Heliod's. Now I can maybe start diversifying, but yeah, opponent scoops it up. Angel of Destiny, likely to win the game next turn. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Tinybones, the Pickpocket, so mono-black discard. Innocence would be great to get on the battlefield as a card draw engine. Can even draw off Angel of Destiny, since it only has 2 power. And then of course all the Pridemate tokens. Do we Swords Tinybones if they play it? It's not really necessary. They won't have the mana to both remove the Orator and get it back out of my graveyard. Could have also considered holding this until after we play the Enduring Innocence. That opponent's gonna push it. And I'm gonna play this as soon as I can. Not too many ways for mono black to exile this. So I'm actually down to trade. And then they would need an answer to enchantment specifically, which again is pretty rare in mono black. It's gonna be a Nashi. That one's potentially worth answering. Or we can go for Ajani, make a token, and then hope they don't have removal. That's maybe a bit risky. Yeah, let's play it safe and keep up swords. Since Nashi can pretty easily snowball if it can connect. And Jadar's fine. So could play the Angel of Destiny, likely gets removed but still draws a card. Or we can go for Ajani, make a token, which draws and grows. And then, even if they remove the token, it's not the end of the world, although I guess we would lose Ajani as well. So maybe Angel's fine actually. And then if we draw an extra land, I can double spell Conjurer and Ajani next turn. Marauder, pretty decent here. At least they couldn't sacrifice a zombie. And we found a pristine talisman. So could play the Conjure, hope to draw a land so I can still play either Ajani or Exemplar. Yeah, that might be worth it, and if not, we can still play the Talisman, trade for Tinybones, and we'll be alright. But yeah, land seems better, because now Exemplar can immediately grow while drawing as well. And then with Talisman we can maybe gain life in the opponent's turn as well to draw 2 cards per turn cycle. Massacre Worm deals with the Conjure. but we can still block. So yeah, not hitting my spot. Heliod's great too, with enough devotion for it to be a creature. So yeah, we can either set up the play I mentioned with Talisman gaining life in the opponent's turn, and then for now we can still play Ajani, make a token. Could also Ajani and Heliod, which is also pretty good. But I kind of want to maximize my card draw. Ooh, Voice of the Blessed is excellent too. Although, could still save that for next turn. And yeah, opponent concedes. We're just drawing way too many cards for a mono-black discard deck to keep up. And then, yeah, with the Talisman, draw a card in the opponent's turn. This is big enough to block a Massacre Worm. And then next turn we could go Heliod into Voice, which draws off Enduring Innocence, draw more of Exemplar, start picking up a ton of +1 counters. Heliod can activate, giving this lifelink, and before you know it, we can use the Zero ability to wipe their board as well. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Rowan, Scion of War, a deck looking to deal itself some damage to set up a big discount. Our hand is decent. Got a good setup to make a Pridemate token and grow it quite large. Can always Solitude early on if needed. And then probably looking to play Guide into a Life Creed duo. Although I could see the advantage of Case first, since it's less susceptible to removal. And then can play duo and Guide on the following turn. Just miss out on a little bit of energy, but that's probably not a huge deal. And at least this way we maximize our life gain as well. Because Guide can enable Case, whereas Case doesn't trigger with Guide in play. So, Steel Seraph now looking like our turn 3 play. So just need to hit some more line drops now. Up to 29. If we can get to 40 life, Ajani's Zero ability turns into a sweeper. Could Solitude Rowan, we'll see what our draw step reveals. Yeah, maybe we Solitude just for the tempo advantage, and then in the meantime we can Ajani, make a token, and keep the Archangel. This also triggers our Case and Life Creed duo. So our Pridemate token's getting quite large. Gain another 3. And our opponent's gonna scoop it up. The Case is solved as well, so that can also recur our creatures. Pridemate is huge. And then Ajani is also ready to use the Zero ability to wipe the opponent's board once again if needed. And then line 5 gives us Archangel, which can grow the team even more. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Gornog, a red's aggro deck with lots of warriors, turning our creatures into cowards, so we cannot block. So let's see here. Yeah, I don't think Heliod's Intervention's gonna be at its best. Sentinel also not great when our opponent's mostly a creature deck, so I think we can do better. Alright, this is a little bit better. So turn 1 can play the Guide, and then go Signet plus Rune Lurker on the following turn. And then we could already set up Ajani, or we can play Linden first. There's Gornog, does have haste. And the bat is now a coward. And so is the guide. Opponent's creature's getting pumped already. So yeah, blocking is going to be very tricky in this matchup. So instead we need to turn it into somewhat of a race. Which, with a Pridemate token, is maybe feasible. And with Linden, this turn Ajani would be the more mana efficient play, so I think it's the move.
Until we achieve peace, we must fight for better. A pure soul can inspire us.
And Dragon Mantle draws a card. And Enthusiasm, a great answer to our Pridemate, sadly. So, opponent doesn't go for Ajani, just goes face. We fall to 14. So maybe this isn't a turn where we play Fountain. Because yeah, I want to play the duo before we minus Ajani. But Fountain doesn't cast Linden. And then now we can use the Guide of Souls to pump the Rune Lurker bat as well. And now we've got an 8-8 Pridemates. 9-9, opponent can prevent it from blocking. But Ajani can also +1 to gain even more life next turn. Celebrants, that's scary if they can exert it to take an additional attack step. So can only block with a duo. So I'll take 11. And then Loran destroys the mantle at the very least. And then Ajani can plus. Attack all out at this point. And we'll see what happens. Opponent probably has to chump the Pridemates. And yeah, opponent scoops it up. Alright, so we get to see our mono-white lifegain deck in action, and Ajani is definitely a contender for one of the best lifegain commanders out there for Brawl decks, maybe on the same level as Heliod for mono-white, but I believe Heliod is still considered to be a higher tier commander according to the matchmaker, so you might actually end up with easier matchups if you play Ajani, but yeah, still proved to be very powerful facing various control decks as well, but we've got a lot of avenues to victory between our alternate win conditions, creatures, card advantage, planeswalkers, so the deck is pretty well rounded, but still has that core of a lifegain deck. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.